Hi, guys. As everybody is trickling in, happy end of July. I cannot believe we're going into August. I am out of Georgia, so my children are going back to school next week, which is baffling to me. We just had our Meet the Teacher today, and we're very excited. I know I'm excited to get back into some routine. But while you guys are joining, thank you for joining first and foremost. I know that this is time out of your day, out of your businesses, but we appreciate that you've joined us, and we really are excited for this topic with Sara Fraser. I always am very excited to have her on. She brings a wonderful spin on topics that are very common in the industry and kind of helps us to rethink those and strategize how to implement them into your shop in different ways. So very excited. Before I give an introduction, I do want to note that this session is being recorded. So if you have to drop or if the audio is not working, there's technical issues, please do reach out to me in the chat. I'll try to help you as best I can, but know that we are recording and you will get this recording no later than Monday next week at the earliest. We do love your feedback. The session topics and the speakers are driven by you guys. So please make sure that at the end of the session, you are filling out that survey. We do give an Amazon gift card, and we do listen, we do implement, and we hear you and appreciate your feedback. So without further ado, today's session, obviously you guys can see it, is the XYZs of hiring. We are all very prone to the fact that hiring right now is an issue, especially with technician shortages and the ever-changing economy and industry, right? There's so many challenges and frustrations that we face when we're hiring. Talent, what do we offer? How do we become competitive enough? And what are the things that we should be looking at? So today, again, this message and session is going to be brought to you by Sara Fraser. Sara is the VP of Business Development and Client Services at Haas Performing Consulting. So Sara, welcome and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Amber. It's always fun when I get to come and do this with you guys. So I'm really excited for today. And like you said, it's an incredibly relevant topic. I don't know many shops I talk to that are not hiring. So most of the content and classes I've been doing over the past couple of years have been really geared towards millennial and Gen Z expectations as customers, expectations as employees, but also, well, I don't know that many people know this, but over the past year or so, we launched a new program with Haas Performance Consulting where we actually do hiring management for shops. So most of my day this past year has been filled with me doing interviews and writing job ads and helping shops find great technicians and service advisors to fit the culture of their business. And so I decided to take some of that generational content that I've been teaching, along with everything that I've been learning over the past year or two of doing interviews and hiring, and get some of this information out there to help shops in that hiring process, because it's a lot. It's almost like taking on another job when you're trying to fill a position. And you're typically doing this when you're already short-staffed. So you're short-staffed and adding a whole new role to your day. And it's a lot of pieces to go through. And that's kind of why we started helping out, is we found that a lot of shop owners are maybe not great at interviewing because it's something they don't do very often, or they're rushing through the process, or maybe hiring out of desperation. I've worked in a shop and I've seen that happen firsthand. And so we really want to help shops avoid that and find good people and write good job ads and conduct good interviews. So that's what we're going to be jumping into today. The reason why this is important right now and why it's relevant, I think, is when we look at the workforce, and these numbers are from 2020, so they're a couple years old, but as of 2020, 19% of the workforce was made up by baby boomers, 36% was Gen X, 40% was Gen Y, and only 6% was Gen Z. However, I think it's incredibly important to still focus on Gen Z because they are estimated to be 27% of our workforce by 2025, which is only 2 years from now. So this is a huge number. This is, when we're hiring, this is the generations that we're really getting applicants from and who we're focusing on. So being able to understand the wants and the needs and the expectations of these different generations is really important in that hiring process. So I want to do a brief explanation on the 3 different generations to give you an idea of who these groups of people are that we're talking about. This class is like a 3-hour class typically, and we only have an hour today. So I'm going to try to give you guys as much information as possible. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on who these generations are, but just to give you a quick overview of who X, Y, and Z are. So when we're talking about X, that is right now, they're about ages 43 to 58. This is a generation often known as latchkey kids. And this is a generation that when they came home from school, they usually came home to an empty house and they did their chores and they did their homework and they were very independent and they're typically a very self-sufficient generation. They are great problem solvers. They're interested in leadership roles. At this point in their career, 43 to 58 years old, they're not really looking for entry-level jobs. They're looking for leadership roles. They're looking for a company that really appreciates their strong work ethic, and they are independent thinkers. And then we have Generation Y, also known as millennials. I talk about this generation a lot because I'm part of it. So I'm almost 38. I definitely fall into this millennial category. We are often called trophy kids, and that comes from my generation grew up getting participation ribbons and awards just for being on a sporting team. Whether we won, whether we lost, it didn't matter. We were awarded just for being there. And it's something that we still have this need for reward and need for appreciation and wanting our bosses to say thank you and recognize and appreciate us. I job hoppers on here because this is often something people associate with a millennial. And there's a few reasons why millennials have a lot of jobs on their resumes. And I heard the other day that it said that the average millennial is going to have between 8 to 10 jobs and 2 to 3 careers in their work history. I definitely fit that. I've had over 10 jobs, and there's multiple reasons for that. Some of it is we worked in industries that don't exist anymore. So in my early 20s, I was a store manager for Blockbuster Video. My plan was to become a district manager and to work in that company my whole life. Well, they don't exist anymore. It wasn't going to happen. So I had to make a change. So there's some of that is that we took jobs that don't exist anymore. And some of us, we're just looking for a home. We're looking for the right fit. We're not willing to work in a job that we're not comfortable with or we're not happy with. And we're typically more likely to take a job that's going to make us happy over one that's going to make us a lot of money. Millennials are totally adaptable and open to change. If you think about how they grew up, we had to learn technology and adapt to it very quickly. They tend to be incredibly creative and innovative. They are strong communicators and they are very resourceful. Gen Z. So now is 11 to 26. So they're still pretty young. We're still learning a lot about this generation. They have an entrepreneurial mindset. They're very fluent in technology. They are great digital communicators, fast-paced problem solvers, and continuous learners. So Gen Z employee, continual education is something incredibly important to them. So that's my brief little recap on Gens X, Y, and Z. And I can't remember if Amber mentioned this at the beginning, but if you guys have questions as we go throughout, please put them in the chat. She'll let me know. I'd rather answer your question while I'm talking about it than have to go back an hour later and go back to that topic. So if you guys have anything, feel free to put it in the chat. And then also, there's going to be some slides here with a lot of text and content on them. And I don't want you to have to spend your time trying to scribble it all and write it down. I am happy to send this PowerPoint to anybody who wants it. My email will be up at the end, and you can just shoot that to me. I don't know if I have a little dog who's coughing, and I don't know if you can hear that in the background, so I'm going to shut my door real quick. Okay. Sorry. Awesome. So before we even go to post our job ad on a job board, we need to spend some time, or even before we go to write that job ad, we need to define what the position we're hiring for actually is. So the best place to start is with a job description. So I would recommend having a written job description, full description of this position and all the responsibilities that are included in it. And then think about your company culture. What are the things that define your company? Are you great team players? Are you family friendly? Do you guys get together and do lunch outings? Do you have staff outings? Things like that, that would really let somebody know what the culture of your company is and about your ideal employee. What are all the skills and qualities you would want in that ideal person for that position? And what is your company advantage? Why would somebody want to come to work for your automotive repair shop instead of your competitor? I also recommend taking some time and looking at other shops that are hiring in your area and reading those job ads and see what they look like and sound like. And that might help you be able to show how you stand out and what you have to offer that maybe they are not offering. And then also take a look at the requirements for the job. What are your non-negotiables? What are things that you absolutely have to require for this position, whether it be something like a valid driver's license, must have their own tools, anything like that that you are not willing to work around? Make sure you know what those are.
I think too, so like to Sky's point, and we can go ahead and launch this poll, but Sky just mentioned that she hasn't tried hiring recently and they plan on doing so, but last year they had several people that didn't have any experience. So I think that that's, your non-negotiable. Make sure that you are putting that in, what that experience looks like.
Definitely. And I will touch on that a little bit. We have a poll that goes with that question too. Not this one, it's a different one. So I think it's in an upcoming slide and I'll talk a little bit about the experience piece. So this poll that's up right now is because, like I said, this class is normally 3 hours long. I want to make sure that I'm getting you the content you guys are most interested in. So are you most interested in today learning about writing a really good job ad, conducting a phenomenal interview, or retaining your employees? So if you guys want to just take a minute and answer that little poll that popped up.
Looks like it's a little bit of a split between writing the job ad and retention.
Okay, perfect. So we'll probably focus more on that and then a little bit less on the actual interview piece. So.
And Cindy, I don't know if she's having some audio issues. So just to reinstate, I need to type it. Rory, if we can type that as well, this will be recorded and sent out. Somebody else, Sarah, I had asked what are some of the common issues that they're facing and hiring today. So that's where Sky's answer came in. Aaron in Southeast Ontario. All of our shops in the area and surrounding areas are wanting to hire and have not found anyone. We have a huge deficit in trained staff in Ontario. So I think that's a consistent issue that's going on.
Definitely. And it's, there are really good techs out there working for somebody, right? And I've interviewed people who I've gone through and posted on job ads and they have their resume listed on Indeed or ZipRecruiter, and they're not actively looking for a job, but they have it posted and I've invited them to apply. And I've interviewed quite a few people who are like, I'm not looking for a job. I'm pretty happy where I'm at, but I saw your invitation and I'm really interested in what this position and this opportunity could be better for me. So it's not just putting a job ad up there and waiting for people to apply. You also have to be pretty active in going through lists of resumes and inviting people with the right skill set to apply to. So when it comes to writing the job ad, take all that information we talked about in defining the job ad, and we're going to put that into our job ad, including you're going to need your need to know information, right? Your basic stuff, days, hours, lunch and break information, the pay range, benefits, location, all the typical things that you would include. Make it easy, make it easy for them to contact you. I like to say provide a phone number in the job ad that they can text. So if they have a question about the job or something simple, but they don't want to submit their full resume, they still have a way to reach out and contact you. Make it clear and easy to understand. Don't overcomplicate it, and include photos. I tend to have much better success with job ads that have photos of the exterior of the business, the interior, the area where they're actually going to be working, maybe a group photo of the current staff, and then definitely a map photo to show where it is that they're going to be going.
Yeah, I think that helps too, Sarah, and building kind of the reputation and quality of service, right? So it's not only the employee that you're trying to hire, but this atmosphere that you're trying to create to the entire public, right? That this is who we are, this is the quality that we are, and these are who we hire. And by providing the images of that, right, you're not going to put up a shop that's dirty, right, on a website. Right. Nobody's going to want to go to that. So I think it continues to build the reputation. So I love that.
Absolutely. And having, even if you have a photo of a really nice, clean, well put together waiting room, it gives people an idea of the level of standards of quality that your shop has. And I think those photos really help a lot. And yeah, you might have them on your website, but people who are submitting resumes aren't necessarily taking the time to go and research every company that they're applying for. So being able to have it there with your ad where they're going to see it right away is definitely helpful. So this is where we're going to talk a little bit about the experience piece. So there is another poll, and I'm curious to know if you guys are currently requiring X amount of years of experience. And if you are, is it you're not, 0, none at all, 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4 years, or 5 or more?
I think it would also be interesting, I don't know if we put this in the subsequent of that, like, what are the actual years that you're seeing, right, of this experience?
Yes.
You're getting
yes.
There. And Sara, since you mentioned while we're waiting for the answers that you're running these interviews, what is the experience level? Is it following in this 1 to 2 years, or is it less than that?
It's all over the board. I can tell you in the last week, I have talked to 2 people who actually own their own shops and have been doing it for quite some time and are closing their shops down and looking to go work somewhere else. I have talked to a couple of people that have very limited experience, maybe less than a year. I talked to somebody this morning who has no actual experience in an automotive repair shop, but had experience working on garbage trucks with a maintenance company. So it's kind of all over the place. And it also depends on what I'm putting on that job ad. All right, so it looks like we've got a good bulk of us, 38% are asking for 5 or more years, and then the majority are asking for about 1 to 2 years. So note on that is when we're writing a job ad, I want you to go through and remove your disqualifiers. And the thing with that is if we're requiring 5 years of experience, you could have a phenomenal employee who only has 4 years, but isn't going to respond to that ad because they see 5 years as a requirement. So my best piece of advice on this is when you first put this ad out there, like the first week or so, I like to cast a really wide net. I don't want to disqualify people. I want to see how many people I can reach as possible. And then if I find within that first week to 2 that I'm getting a ton of applicants that have very limited experience, no experience, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to edit and I'm going to put a deal breaker or disqualifier on there and require about 1 to 2 years of actual experience. If this is a position where you absolutely need somebody that is an A-level, 5 years of experience, you can keep it on there, but you're probably not going to get as many applicants. And I don't even like to put, sometimes I see preferred but not required. I still think that deters people from applying if they don't meet that qualification. So if you're not getting a lot of applicants, look over your ad and see what kind of disqualifiers you might have in there and try to take those out, and then see what kind of applicants you get after that.
Great.
So I have a list of words that I really like to include in job ads. And I've split these lists up to Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z, and what words are more appealing to each generation. But I don't want you to look at this and go, okay, I'm going to craft a job ad specifically to Gen X or specifically to Gen Y. I don't want you to do that. I want you to use words from all 3 of these lists because they're not going to be turnoffs to the other generations, but it's going to help you cast that wider net and appeal to all 3 across the board. So for Gen X, we have words like experienced, stable, leadership. Like I said, they're looking for more leadership roles. They want to work for established companies. They're looking for a work-life balance, autonomy. They're very results-oriented, established, growth opportunities, trust, appreciation, work ethic, mentorship, and respect. So these are all words that you could include in your job ad that are going to be kind of more enticing to that Gen X. And after we get through the list of words, I'm going to give you some examples to actually put these into sentences. So for Gen 1, we have words like innovative, growth, purpose-driven, socially conscious, fast-paced, progressive, empowering, tech-savvy, creative, diversity, inclusion, sustainability. You're going to see a lot of these same words on the Gen Z list as well. They're quite similar. So we've got innovative, tech-savvy, growth opportunities, which I think has been on all three lists. So that one's really important right there, is being able to show that there is room to advance and grow. A safe environment. This one is huge with Generation Z. Now, when I interview people, I don't know their age. It's not something you can ask, but I can usually tell based on when they graduated high school or something, if I'm talking to somebody in this younger generation. And on every interview I do, I ask, when you're looking for a new job, what are the three most important things you're looking for? And when it comes to the younger people I talk to, safety is almost always in that top three. So they're really looking to know that they're going to work in a place where they're going to be safe. I even had somebody last week tell me, one of the most important things is that I'm in a good environment with no drug addicts and no alcoholics. Like that was his most important thing in finding a new job. So that safety piece, very important with Generation Z. They also like the words entrepreneurial, flexible, cutting edge, inclusive, diverse, sustainable, impactful, creative problem solving, fast paced, and continued learning opportunities. So I'm going to give you some sentences coming up here that you can use in your job ad. The thing is, though, I don't want you guys to copy and paste and use exactly what I've got here. This is a starting point. Your job ad needs to have a heartbeat. It needs to have a person behind it. It needs to really show the culture of your shop. Especially when we're looking at this younger generation, they can tell if something sounds robotic or too good to be true or not realistic. They want transparency. They want genuine. They want authentic. So I'm not saying take this content and copy and paste it, include it into your job ad, but use this as some examples as a starting point to be able to take some pieces of information about your shop and include some of these words. So we have things like, are you an innovative problem solver with a passion for automotive technology? We're seeking a skilled professional to bring fresh ideas and creative solutions to our cutting edge. My slide is covered.
You got a little click happy there.
Growth. So definitely talking about growth and advancement opportunities. There are a lot of slides. And so I'm probably going to go pretty fast through these. But like I said, if you want this presentation, I'm more than happy to email it to you so you have all of this content. Purpose-driven, including that, again, really big for millennials. Technology, creativity. This would speak directly to me because I find myself to be a very creative person. So when I see somebody saying, oh, we're looking for somebody creative with fresh ideas, to come join our team. Work-life balance. And there's a lot of different ways that you can include the work-life balance piece. A lot of times we say things like, we're only open Monday through Friday because we believe that evenings are for enjoying your hobbies and spending time with your friends and your family. And, we want them to know that we understand and respect that they are a person outside of work and that we care about who that person is, right? We're definitely interested in their skill set and what they bring to our company, but we also are interested in who they are outside of work. And we respect that they have their own personal time outside of work. And we don't expect them to be thinking about work 24/7 all the time. And that's a pretty realistic thing, right? So that's nice to know when you're looking for a job that, oh, wow, this person actually cares that I, get to spend time with my family and my friends, and they understand that work might not be the most important thing in my life. And when you talk to a lot of millennials, it usually isn't. So having that work-life balance piece.
I would also say too, Sarah, thinking about the employees that you do have today, when you're writing these job descriptions, right? What are the qualities of the employees that you have today that are kind of your, what you're looking to mimic, right? And even ask them hey, these are the things that we're looking for. What else would you say that we should put in our job description, right? And building this culture where everyone is involved in this process, right? They're going to be working together. Exactly. It helps to look at current employees, right? So if you have a technician that is, kind of your top experience, right? How can you involve them in this of like, hey, we have these types of technicians that have X amount of experience that are willing to help you get your hands in the door, training, those types of things. And you're fostering this culture that people are looking for, right? To be a part of, because then they feel like they are part of the business too.
100%. And you're going to see a lot of the things that we talk about in writing the job ad repeated again in retention, because it's what employees are looking for. And that inclusive decision-making is a big part of retaining your employees and letting them feel like they are a part of decisions that are happening to the business. And you're right, this is somebody that they're going to be working with all the time. So making sure that that's a good fit. We interviewed a guy a few months back who, phenomenal technician, great skill set, but very short on words, didn't talk a whole lot, was very, and we kind of talked about him and we're like, he's the kind of guy that would go to work, go to his station, do the job and go home, which would be fine because you get the work done. But we know the culture of the shop we were hiring for, and that's not it. This is a shop where they have fun at work, they talk together, they all get along really well, and putting somebody, although he might have been a phenomenal technician, into that position wasn't going to fit that shop correctly. So being able to understand your current employees is definitely very important in that.
Well, and what are the workflow challenges that you're filling for? Right. And so, the back of the house, the front of the house, like they feed off of each other. Right. And so building off of that, I'm going to ask a question that just came through. Do you think that do you think that we bring current employees in on the hiring process, maybe in the interview? And I'm going to let you answer that. I have my own opinions, but if you want to answer that.
I do. I think if you have employees who you really value and trust and are empowered to do their jobs, I absolutely think you can bring them in on the interview process. Once maybe not the very beginning part of the process, but once you find somebody that you think could be a good fit. And I think we have a poll coming up about this later, but I recommend doing more than one interview. I recommend having somebody else do an interview because you're going to learn something else. You're going to get a different perspective. I usually do one interview and then I will bring Bill from Haas Performance Consulting in and we'll do a second interview together. It's fascinating to me sometimes how people are really open and chatty with me. And then once he gets on, they're super nervous and, he might come across a little more intimidating. And so they're less talkative. Or we've had it the other way too, where I couldn't get this person to talk to me at all. And as soon as I got him on the phone with Bill, it was like he wouldn't stop talking. So sometimes it is a good idea to have a second person, whether you have a business coach or one of your current employees or co-owner or something like that, to do a second interview.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'm going to kind of skip through some of these because there's a lot. What I will say on this sustainability one is you probably already have content written about this. If you're doing eco-friendly practices, it should be something you're talking about on your website. Your website's a great place to go and take stuff about your shop that's already been written, so you don't have to do the work twice, and include some of those pieces about your business into your job ad, whether that's, your eco-friendly practices, the genesis of why you started your business, why you do what you do, a little bit about who you are as a company. You have a lot of that content already written on your website, so utilize some of that in your job ad as well. All right. So when it comes to, now we've put together this job ad, we've gone through these lists of words and sentences and included that, made sure it has a personality, a heartbeat behind it. It doesn't sound like you went to Chat GPT and just said, write me a job ad, right? They're going to see right through that. This needs to be coming from you. It needs to have the culture behind it. And now it's time to post it. And this is questions I get a lot is, where do we post job ads? And my answer for that is simply everywhere you can. So cast a very wide net at the beginning. And I usually give it about a week or two. And then I let go of the ones that aren't working, so try everything that's out there, whether it's Indeed, Craigslist, ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, LinkedIn. I know there's more, but use the ones that are available to you. And then if after a week or so, you're like, oh, I'm not getting any applicants on this one, but I'm getting a lot on this one, use the one that's working. And we hire for shops all over the country. And I find that some work great in some areas that don't work in other areas and vice versa. So it's really just learning where the people in your area are applying. I've had people tell me like, oh, well, I don't use Craigslist at all because no one uses it. Craigslist is like $25 and your post is up for a month. And I will never tell you not to use it because I've had good hires come from Craigslist. I've also had nobody apply from a Craigslist ad. But in the grand scheme of things, when you're looking at $25 for a month, I think on Indeed, we're on average paying around 80 something per applicant for a technician. It's worth it if you get that one that works out.
And
Also,
when you
your
think
website.
about generational, right? Like let's talk generational, like Craigslist will hit probably the more experienced, right? Because they're used to Craigslist, those types of things.
Yep.
And so those are the things when you're hiring, like, yes, it may not be working for others, but like you said, if it's a minimal cost and you may get return on that, it's worth trying.
Absolutely. And like we've had really good hires that have come from Craigslist. So it's just, you just never know, so use the things that are available. Also have something on your website, a careers tab on your website. When we moved to Madison a couple of years ago, my husband was looking for a job in his field and he was on Indeed and ZipRecruiter and he was applying to a couple places. And I went into Google Maps and I just searched out companies that fit his skill set and what he wanted to do. And I would go to their website, find their careers tab, find a link and send that to him for him to apply at places that, might not have been actively hiring, but for the right person with the right skill set, they always have an opportunity for them to apply. And really, we should always be hiring. So there's no reason to not have something on your website that would direct somebody to where they could apply to work for your business.
There is a question. There's a question, and I don't know if you may know the answer to this. And Erin, we may need a little bit more context. But question is, do you happen to know what the hiring stats are for Canada? Not sure if you know or if we need more detail, but I did see that Murray Voth is on this call as well, and he's a business consultant in Canada, where applicants come from. Okay, so that's really what the question's for.
Okay. I do not have any shops in Canada that I'm familiar with right now. So all my experience has been limited to the US. But yes, you're right. Murray would be a great resource for that. So
Murray, if you're on, what are the places, I think you're on, if you hear this, what are the places you're finding for job listings that are working the best? And Erin will get that answered for you.
Thank you. All right, so we've got our job ad posted. We're casting this wide net, and now we're getting in resumes. This is the part of it that you really have to stay on top of. It's got to be timely. If you get somebody who applies on Monday and you don't reach back out to them until Thursday or Friday, there's a good chance they've already moved on. They potentially already have an offer from somewhere else. Like, this is something that we really need to be on top of. So I would recommend setting aside some time in the morning and in the afternoon to go back and check all of your candidates, all of your applicants, and make sure that you have reviewed them and had some time to go over their application. And do this at a time where you don't have a lot of distractions, where you can actually take your time and read the resumes, because if you don't, and I may have learned this the hard way, you will end up wasting a lot of time going back through and looking at resumes that you've already decided you didn't want to interview, but not being able to remember why. So being really thorough and making notes on who you want to invite and why. So having a yes, a maybe, and a no list, and then having the notes on why they're in that category. If there's missing information on an applicant that you're interested in, reach out and ask for it. A lot of these job sites, you can send them messages directly and get that information from them if something's missing. And then once we have our yes, maybe, no list, and I do this on a spreadsheet, find a system that works well for you, but because I put applications out to so many job sites, a lot of these job sites do make it easy for you to have your yes, no's, and maybes categorized in their site, but I want to be able to see them all together. So I keep it really organized. I do a spreadsheet. I put my notes in there on why I put them in whatever category that they're in. And then I'm going to go and invite them to interview. And again, I want to make that as easy as possible. I use a calendar app link to where they can just click in, pick a time, and set up a preliminary phone interview with me. And I do as a preliminary phone interview because it's easy and it doesn't take a lot of their time. I let them know it's going to be about 10 to 15 minutes. This is something that they can do on a lunch break or before work, and they don't have to travel somewhere to do it. They don't have to get all dressed up to go to an interview. So it makes it as easy and convenient for them as possible. And that's something that I get asked a lot is how do we stop from being ghosted? And ghosting is when you have somebody that's interested or that has applied and you've reached out to them and they just stop responding to you. And I really don't have an answer for that. It happens. It happens to me. If I knew how to fix it, I would. But I think the best way to get around that is to just really be proactive and make it easy. Contact them as soon as possible and make the next steps as easy as possible for them. So being able to do a preliminary phone call and being able to schedule that on their own time without having to go back and forth with different dates and times options, I think that keeps it really simple. So preparing for the interview, I'm going to kind of cruise through some of this because you guys were more interested in the job ad and the retention side. So, all I'm going to say is make sure you have notes ready to go. I do a note page with examples of all the questions I'm going to ask and then space next to them so I can take notes as I'm on this interview. And then I also add anything on there based off their resume that I want to ask them about. I make sure I have it written down because if I don't write it down, I'm going to get to chatting and talking and I'm going to get off the phone and be like, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask them about that. So I make sure anything that I want to ask in the interview, I have already written down in front of me, ready to go. So I won't forget to ask important questions. And if you don't interview often, practice. Because Amber and I talked about this a little bit the other day. Not only are people who are going to interviews nervous, but I think sometimes as the person conducting the interview, it can be a little nerve-wracking, especially if you're not really used to presenting or speaking in front of people and having somebody come in and now you've got to do this interview. It can be a little bit like, oh my gosh. So don't be nervous, but practice. They're probably more nervous than you are, but utilize this as a chance to role play and become a little bit more comfortable with the interview process. And then also just be prepared, go over your questions ahead of time, know the things you want to ask.
I love that. And I'll just say from I don't know if that was me. Was somebody else talking? Sounded like somebody else was. I would say, I'm personally going through the interview process of hiring, right? And completely different, but it's applicable to anybody who's hiring. And I was telling Sarah, you were exactly right. Like I find myself getting nervous, right? When I'm hiring somebody. But I think what it comes down to, and you just said, is knowing what you're looking for, right? And you said it so clearly, and I actually implemented it the other day because when there is silence, right, in that interview process, right, you don't have to fill that gap, right? You don't have to keep talking. And I do that, right? I'm a talker. I want to make sure that I'm building this culture of this is who we are. We're great people. This is a great company. But that's not what you're looking for. Like you're looking to understand and listen. The listening part is so key to this, right?
Definitely. And when I worked in a shop, I would watch my shop owner do interviews with people. And now he's a salesperson. This is a used car dealership and service center. And so he put on a show, they'd come in and he'd show them around and talk about how great we were and introduce them to everyone, which is great. And you should do that. But he very rarely took the time to stop and listen and let them really talk and get to learn more about them and their skill set and all of that. And so I've seen more than once somebody come in and get sold on our shop to get hired only to find out that they didn't have the skill set that we needed or the experience that we needed or whatever it was. So yeah, stopping, listening. And if I'm interviewing and I have somebody who's giving me really short one-word answers, I will just pause and wait for them to keep elaborating on the story because silence is awkward and we want to fill it. And so as the interviewer, we need to stop trying to fill that silence and let the person we're interviewing continue to talk and not cut them off because Oftentimes we think like, oh, I already know where the story's going to go. I already know what they're going to say. And so we stop listening, and we can't do that on an interview. We really need to stay present, listen. A great way to do that is to be taking notes as they're talking, because now you're really trying to get all of that information. So this whole, something we talked about already was how many interviews, I believe, do you do? So do you do one interview, 2 to 3, or more than 3?
Yeah. And this goes back to what we were saying, even, for us as a company, 3 is a standard, right? Like we go through 3 interviews and it's 3 different people, because each person is going to either manage or work differently, right? And you have to understand those work styles as well. And so allowing other people to interview allows them to think and see differently than things that we may not be seeing, right?
Yep. We also do 3. And, I've had very few people have pushback to the process. I think a lot of people kind of expect that now. And being able to do phone interviews and interviews on Zoom since COVID, people are a lot more open to being able to jump on and do a virtual interview. They found it to be a lot easier, more accessible. And with the whole being nervous thing too, I think doing the phone interview first kind of helps with that. It's a lot less nerve-wracking to be on a phone call. And then you get to know this person a little bit. So by the time you're actually meeting them in person or maybe doing virtual, you're not as nervous because you've already chatted with them, got to know something about them. You have somewhat of a connection. So it's not a brand new person coming in to interview in person with you. So it does look like most of you guys are doing 2 to 3. We have quite a few doing 1. I personally would recommend doing at least 2. But yeah, like I said, we also do, on average, we do 3 interviews per applicant.
And so do you ever, so are your 2 interviews set for differently? Like the first interview is kind of getting a background on them, right? And maybe the second interview is more like, here's the job. How would you kind of role play in these positions, or whatever the case? Do you ever separate the 2 interviews, or are they very mimicked?
They are different, but also similar. So there are certain questions that I will ask on both, because like the question I had mentioned earlier, what are the 3 most important things you're looking for in your next job? They may have never been asked that before. Now I put them on the spot and they're going to tell me 3 things. I typically find that when I ask that question again on the second interview and they've had some time to think on it, those 3 things change a little bit. And I'll even let them know, like if somebody else, if I'm introducing Bill and I say, he's going to be doing your interview today, he might ask you some of the same questions I've already asked you. It's not a test to see if your answers are the same, so we try to make it fun and easy so they're not nervous, like, oh my gosh, what did I say last time, but you'll learn a little bit more, even if you're asking them a question you've already asked. But yeah, I do have a couple of questions that are more specific for my preliminary interview, and then some that are a little bit more in depth for the second interview.
Great.
So, preliminary interview, short and sweet. This incredibly important. This will save you a ton of time. Ask about your non-negotiables first. If you absolutely need somebody with a valid driver's license, ask about it first, because it will, even if you have it as a deal breaker on your ad, people who don't have it will still apply. They'll think, well, I'm going to do a really great interview and they'll find a way to hire me, even if it's something you're saying you have to have this. So I have multiple people who have applied for jobs who don't have a driver's license, and don't waste your time. Don't waste the 15 minutes of your time doing this interview with somebody only to find out you can't hire them anyway. So get your non-negotiables out there first. I always like to explain to them what the job is, make sure it's something that they're interested in, ask why they'd be successful. This is a little more geared towards the service advisor side of things, because we do tend to interview a lot of people who have maybe never been in the automotive industry, but have great customer service or sales skills. And so I really want to give them an idea of what that position entails and make sure it's something that they're interested in before I waste their time and they waste mine, only to find out it's not something that they want to do anyway. And just steps with a timeline. So what to expect, what to expect after this preliminary interview, when they should hear from you. If the next step is going to be a virtual interview, an in-person interview, letting them know what that's going to be. Ask them if they have any questions for you. And then thank them, always make sure we're thanking them for their time. and their interest in the position. And we appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today, and let them know what's going to happen next. This is what we were talking about before, the listen. So listen, pause, let them talk.
I don't know who it was. I don't know who I was talking to. I think they always count to like 20 or 10 or something. And even that, like, I think it was Jeremy O'Neill. He said, you know, when he's ever having a conversation with somebody, he always counts to at least 10. And 10 may seem really long, right, in that pause, but it allows for that space even in. So it's very awkward, but it allows for them to kind of continue to think. Like, have you ever watched Elon Musk in an interview, right? Somebody asks him a question and it literally feels like it takes him a minute and a half to answer because he's understanding and trying to figure out how to craft his message and answer it clearly. So it's really important to pause.
It is. And it's so awkward, and it gets easier with practice. The more you do it, the more you'll get used to doing it. But yeah, especially when you're on the phone and you can't see them and it's just silence, you know, but just give it a couple of seconds. They will usually continue talking. You will learn more to the story. You'll learn more details. Also, when going into interviews, know the things you can't ask. Again, this might be different for Canada, so I don't know, but make sure you look at your local what you are and are not allowed to ask on an interview. Make sure you know those things. Interview questions, like I said, start with your non-negotiables first. Don't waste your time. And then these are some of the preliminary questions I use for a technician interview. Are you familiar with the company? How'd you hear about us? Where are you currently employed? And then why are you looking to leave that job? What got you into automotive in the first place? Tell me about training and education you've attended. Tell me something about you that isn't on your resume. What do you like to do for fun? I like to ask these questions because they're the questions where you really get to learn about them, but they also understand that you're interested in more than just their skill set. You're interested in who they are as a person. And especially if you're interviewing somebody in that millennial generation, we love to talk about ourselves. So if you ask me about my hobbies or my interests, you're going to learn a lot about me. Are there any vehicles you prefer not to work on? What areas would you like more training in? Do you have your own tools? And when are you available to start? How much are you looking to make at your next job? So this is my pretty short, sweet 10 to 15 minute interview. I don't always hit all of these. Sometimes I have some different ones. And, you know, a lot of times I'll let the interview kind of take its own way too. The fun thing about doing phone and virtual interviews is you get to learn about people just from background noises. Like if you hear dogs in the background, or the other day I was on an interview and I heard a rooster in the background and I was like, do you have chickens? And we ended up talking about chickens for 5 minutes. And it's just being able to be conversational and personal and get to really learn about them makes them a lot more at ease and more, you know, just makes the interview flow better. I'm not going to want to go work for somebody who comes across really intimidating or like they don't have the time of day to interview me, because what is working with that person going to be like, right? I want to work for somebody who is personable and is willing to chat with me and who actually cares about who I am outside of work. Here's the advisor questions. Again, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. A lot of them are pretty similar, but I do like to ask them, you know, give them a scenario and tell me how you'd respond to that. So oftentimes it's a scenario of a difficult customer or a price shopper customer, or I just say, hey, it's your first day of work, the phone rings, pick up the phone and let me hear what that sounds like. And what I'm really looking for there is to hear the inflection of their voice change. You know, do they go into their customer service voice? Is there a smile in the voice? You know, do they switch over into that mode kind of a thing? I'm not looking necessarily for them to know all the specifics about answering the phone, but do they have the personality there? And then when are you able to start? How much are you looking to make? Again, if you guys want this content, I'll send you the PowerPoint. I don't want you to be trying to scribble it all down right now. So take notes, do your in-person interview, make it easy, take as much anxiety out of that situation as possible. And so for that, let them know exactly where to go, where they're going to park when they get to your business. What door are they going to go into? Who are they looking for? And where are they going to find this person? So if they're already nervous and anxious and then they get to your shop and they don't know what door to go into or who they're looking for or where to go, they're coming into this interview already kind of flustered. So try to take as much anxiety out of that situation as possible. Show them around, give them a tour, show them where they would be working, introduce them to other employees who are there, and be really welcoming and friendly, not intimidating and scary. Like I said, this is, in a way, they're interviewing you too. They're going, is this somebody that I want to work for? Is this a company that's going to fit? Is this a place I'm going to want to spend my whole day at? So don't come across like super distracted or like you don't have time for them. Be friendly, and don't make them feel like they're an inconvenience. So here's a few more interview questions. And you guys, I have tons of interview questions. So if this is something you're interested in, reach out to me. My favorite one that's on here is probably, if I met your best friend, what would they tell me they like most about you? I learned so much from people with that question. The other one I want to point out is sometimes we would hear people interviewing and they would say, do you show up on time for work? Are you punctual? Of course, people are going to say yes to that. Nobody's going to come into an interview and be like, yeah, I'm perpetually late for work every day, So what we say is, the last time you were late for work, why were you late? And if you've just not been thinking for a long time, you kind of know, like, they're probably not late very often. And we've had people say, I don't know that I've ever been late, or I can't remember the last time I was late, or you'll get the story, right? Oh, my kid was sick, or this happened, or whatever. But you'll learn a little bit more than just asking, are you punctual for work? All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about retention. So again, a lot of these things mimic the things that we need to be putting in our job ads too, because the things that are going to entice people to come work for us are the same things that are going to make them want to stay working for us. Big one there is opportunities for advancement, offering career path planning, training, certifications, performance-based promotions, mentorship programs, continuing education incentives. These are all really good things that, on all of those lists, they're looking for growth, room to grow, a company that's going to invest time in them and help them become better at what they do. Is this somebody who's going to hire me and 5 years from now, I'm going to be doing exactly what I'm doing today? Or are they going to invest in my skills and help me grow and develop and become even better at what I do? That is huge in retaining employees. I can tell you from personal experience, the company my husband works for just sent him on a week-long training event to certify him in some things. And prior to that, he was kind of thinking he might be looking for a different job. He wasn't really sure. And now this is the second one they've sent him on in the past 2 months. And it's like, this company has a plan for him and they're showing him where they expect him to be in a couple of years. And they're spending the time and the money to certify him and things and get him ready to go there. So he's no longer thinking about leaving that company. He feels really appreciated and respected there.
I think that's the big one. Like, your company is showing value in you, right? That they want to grow you. And that's huge. And I think that we had a comment earlier, for a small shop, how can they incentivize, right? Because financial compensation can be really hard, especially when you're competing with a dealer down the street, right? Why should they come to you? Of course, the dealer is going to be able to offer more, or maybe a shop that is a little bit larger. They have a little bit more revenue coming in. But I think these things in like how you're growing and incentivizing the person, right, is really big. And I think when you think about the millennials and, the Gen Zs, those are the things that they're looking for. Even going back to Gen X's, right? These are the group of generations that used to be with companies for, in some senses, that might be the generation before that, but for years, right? And why were they there for years? Because these companies took care of them. They gave them good benefits. We just lost a tech to a dealer. We couldn't compete with the wage offer. Yeah, that's really tough. But Tyler, the other part of that is maybe the culture. Yes, the money is very shiny, but the culture at the end of the day is what keeps people, right? At the end of the day, I'm going to make a decision on if my company cares about me, they're growing with me and acknowledging me, right? Yes, the money is what we're going to run to if those other things aren't being met, right? And we're going to say money is what we need, but that's really not what we need. My famous saying is the grass is not always greener. So
it's not.
It's really not.
A lot of the people I interview will say that. They're like, yes, money is important, but I'm really looking for a place with a good atmosphere or a place that I feel comfortable at. And that the atmosphere, environment, culture, that's almost always in those top three things when I ask what you're looking for. Pay is not in there as often as you would think. It definitely comes up, but it is not always the number one thing that somebody's looking for in their job.
No, it's a value, right? It's almost like things have changed. It's a value change. Tyler, I would love to know what the dealer offered. What was the wage offer? If you're open to responding to that, would be great. But sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Yeah, you're totally fine. Other things that you can do that help retain employees are recognition and reward, performance bonuses, having anniversary celebrations, birthday celebrations, team building events. Maybe you have employee appreciation days or an employee of the month or some type of recognition that way, and simply saying, thank you. Like I said, millennials are those trophy kids. Oftentimes, all I'm looking for my trophy is a thank you. Thanks for coming in today. I really appreciate you being here. We couldn't do what we do without you. Like, that's my gold star at the end of the day. So just really being able to show that appreciation. The collaborative and inclusive environment, like we talked about earlier, the inclusive decision-making, having team meetings and huddles, having like a open and respectful communication amongst your staff, positive work culture, safe and clean, that encourages work-life balance, employees who are empowered, that we're not stepping in and doing the job for our employees. Because what that says to me when if I'm interacting with a customer and a boss steps in and starts taking over, that says to me, you don't need me here. You can do what I do, obviously. Why am I even here? When you're empowered to do your job and make decisions and take care of your people, you're more likely to stay at that job. Competitive compensation, whether that's performance-based, skill-based, making sure that we're doing annual salary reviews, that we have a great benefits package. I will talk about benefits in a little bit here. I have a list of some things that are benefits that employees are currently looking for. Job security, and this is more with Gen X. They want to know that this place is going to be there, that they're established, being open about the financial health of the company and providing them reassurance, and also giving feedback. I tend to be my own worst critic. So if I'm working for somebody and they never check in with me or let me know how I'm doing, I'm automatically thinking I'm doing awful. Like, I'm doing a horrible job. They haven't said anything to me. I should probably be looking for a new job already, where they may be thinking, Sarah's doing phenomenal. She's a great employee. But if you don't check in with Sarah and let her know that, she's already looking for a different job because she doesn't think she's doing a good job. So just providing that employee feedback for that job security, that yes, you're doing a great job. We really appreciate you. And healthy work environments, like we said before about the safety. And I mean, this could include things like ventilation, air quality, heat and air conditioning, providing your employees regular breaks, having that open communication, providing health and wellness benefits, embracing technology and innovation. So continual education, new training on new technology that's coming out, staying up to date with the times, having up-to-date equipment, having a really phenomenal software management system. Maybe Amber could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think too, right, when you're looking, and I don't like to make these AutoLeap sales pitches, so I'm not going to do that, but thank you. But I think overall, making sure that we are staying with the times, right? Technology is in, right? Making sure that we have technology that runs the shop and the back of the shop, right? That is going to make them more efficient, to make them feel like they are well prepped for the job. Those are the types of things, and right? So making sure from the beginning, like a shop management system that's going to do those things from the start, make you more effective, make you more efficient, bring you in more cars, have better communication with your customers. Like, these are all things that will make your employees work more efficiently with you. So
100%. Embracing digital communication, whether that's having a Slack group or a texting group for your staff, or being able to, utilize that type of communication that they're used to. Providing DVI. I've interviewed people who are like, I'm not going to come work for a shop that doesn't do digital vehicle inspections. That's what they're used to, and that's what they expect now. training on new technology, hybrids and electricals, attending industry events. That is a great way to retain your employees, especially when you get to go on a trip and get to go somewhere and get to meet other people in your industry and feel like you're really a part of something and learn more. And, you really know your company cares about you when they're spending that amount of time and investment to have you go and attend an industry event. Encouraging ownership, so letting them have ownership over certain projects, empowered decision-making, letting them be impactful, letting them know how impactful they are, and again, not doing their job for them.
I wanted to, on the training, because training is so very vital and important. I do want to say, and I will toot our horn on this one, we sponsor owners or technicians to go. So if it's ever an event that you are looking to attend, reach out to me. There's different organizations that we work with to give discounted rates on registration, right? To get you there. So if that is ever something that you're looking into, we 100% want to support that, support the growth, and help you guys grow. So.
Love that. That's awesome. I want to include, I know we're already at time, so I'm just going to throw this up here, but these are some additional benefits. I mean, we always talk about benefits as in health, dental, vision, 401k, those kinds of things. There are other benefits that employees are looking for today, whether that be professional development, as we've talked about, continuing education, generous PTO. I've seen multiple jobs now that have unlimited PTO being offered. And what we've tended to learn is that the people who have unlimited PTO are actually taking less PTO than companies that are giving that. Here's a prime example. So that's, and a good friend of mine just took a new job, and that was her biggest negotiation piece, was that she wanted 3 weeks of vacation and she wasn't going to take the job without it. She ended up getting it. Sometimes that was more important to her than the salary or the health benefits, so learning what is important to this employee. And I ask about that on an interview. I say, benefits wise, what are the things you're looking for? Retirement plans, financial education resources, student loan assistance, help with, helping them with their financial goals, transportation benefits, whether it may be incentives for eco-friendly commuting. That's something that's very important to your Generation Z employee. Family-friendly benefits, childcare assistance, generous parental leave policies, things like that. This one is a new one to me over here, VTO. I had not heard of volunteer time off. And when I was learning about it, I was like, that is amazing. There are companies that will pay their employees to go and volunteer in the community. That's huge. The Generation Z employees, millennials are going to love that. Benefits that have social impact, mental health resources, counseling services, stress management, employee assistance programs, employee perks, things like discounts. Maybe you partner with other local companies and you offer each other's employees some type of discount or benefit. A tool allowance is really big. Talked to somebody this morning that was talking about a shop that provides tools for their employees, and they asked the employees why they liked working there, and that was the number one thing. I don't have to buy my own tools. Uniforms or clothing allowance, gym memberships, fitness programs.
I love that. You did so great. So here's Sarah's email. I know a lot of people wanted the PowerPoints. So maybe we can talk about that afterwards and just sending it out. But I know, reach out to Sarah, get the PowerPoint. There's other things that you can do too, right? Like, and I know it's hard to mention it on your job descriptions, right? But, things like, I personally travel for AutoLeap a good bit, right? And I got back from traveling and I had a gift card in the mail, and it was actually addressed to my husband. And it was, thank you so much for allowing your wife to travel away for our company.
Aww.
Those are the types of things that are like, okay, I'm here, right? You have my attention. And just understanding those small things. You had mentioned previously about a woman who, her kids' education, right? So, and
Yes.
that's where the listening comes into play, right? I don't know if you want to give that example. But.
Yeah, sure. We interviewed somebody for a service advisor position, and just through conversation, because you never want to ask about children or family, but just through conversation, she told us that she had a daughter And this daughter was her entire world, like meant everything to her. Come to find out, she had had a few miscarriages before having this daughter. And so when we went to put an offer together, we included that part of her working there would include every year a certain percent or a certain amount of money went into a college fund for that little girl. You want to talk about retention. I mean, you're not going to leave a company that is doing that and caring, they care that much about you and your family. And, so learning, and that's stuff that you kind of have to just really have good interviews with a lot of discovery questions to get to know about people and find out the things that they really enjoy. When I ask, what do you like to do for fun outside of work? I often hear, oh, I like to go to the gym or weightlifting, so having, what's a gym membership? Maybe $50 a month, having that as an incentive or a discount on that might be a really great thing for that employee. Now, it might not be for every employee, but being able to have those personalized benefit packages that fit the needs of the people who are looking. I do have a QR code on here if you guys are interested. If you want to chat with me about anything hiring related, if after this you're like, oh my gosh, that's way too much work, I don't want to do any of this, just do it for me. I'd love to chat with you. I'd be more than happy to try to help you find a technician or service advisor. But even if you just have a simple question and want to have a meeting with me, you can use this QR code. It'll take you to a link to schedule that with me. My email is on here. More than happy to send this content to you. More than happy to answer any questions. Like I said, this is a lot of content crammed into 1 hour, and I really wanted to get you guys the most important stuff. So hopefully we did that.
I do want to answer this last question because I think this is the hardest part. And I know we're up on time, but people are still here and I get this. So how do people afford all of these, perks, right? Do people pay less per hour? I'm very open. I just need to figure out the finances. How are these expenses written off? So really great questions, Erin. I think, I don't know if you want to answer that, Sarah, but it could be an offline conversation.
Yeah, that's something I would definitely direct you to have a conversation if you have a business coach with them about, or I can direct you to Bill, the owner of my company, who would have a lot more insight on the financial piece of that. And some of these things that I think, people are looking for aren't as expensive as we may initially think that those benefits are. So just even looking into that, or looking into what your current healthcare provider, do they offer other employee assistance programs? Do they offer health and wellness or mental health programs? And what does that cost look like? It might not be as high as we think, so just doing a little bit of research on that.
Yeah. And I think too, right, the things that we're saying don't always have to be a monthly thing that you're giving out, right? They're just, you're compensated and appreciated throughout. And that is also a good, if you're already doing it or not doing it with your current employees, those are the things that, they will tell in the interviews, right? Like this is why I'm here, right? I always say in my interviews why I am at AutoLeap, right? And it's generally because of how they've taken care of me and cared about really everybody else in our customer base. Like those are things that just come natural if a company and a business is building culture, right? And allowing people to speak to that. It's your social proof, honestly. So allow them to be your social proof.
If you, are letting your employees get in on the interview process, then being able to hear from a current employee why they like working there and what they like so much about it is really helpful as well.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, you are a delight to always host on here. We always have such wonderful engagement. Thank you. Thank you. For those that are still on, we did record this. You will get the recording. Reach out to Sarah for the email. Obviously, it will be on the recording. If you forget what the email is, reach out to me. I think I send all of the marketing emails from my name. So you definitely have my email. And I will be glad to help you guys get connected. So have a wonderful rest of your month of July. And for those of you who have children going back to school or not, good luck. And I wish them a wonderful year. So thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Amber. And thank you guys for joining today. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.